Alafia, and welcome to the Iyanifa blog. It was September 1st of this year that I cast Ifa for Barack Obama and John McCain. I cast it in order to establish and to shed some light on their life paths, their primary orisha, and perhaps most importantly, the outcome of the election. At the time, John McCain had come from behind and was approximately 2 points ahead of the polls. Momentum seemed to be going his way, but Ifa correctly identified that Obama would be elected, and rather easily. More important in what we have to learn here is that Obama's primary orisha, Oya, that energy of sudden change, has really been the hallmark of not only his campaign, but his actual election as the next president of the United States. The sudden change that he brought to an entire concept of political campaigning, the change about attempting greater inclusion, the change of dealing with the internet and fundraising in a totally different way from thousands and perhaps hundreds of thousands of small individual contributors. The change in his outlook, the change in his behavior from most presidential candidates. This kind of refusal to get down into the gutter and battle on those terms, to remain what some people identified as aloof, but an Ifa observer would identify as cool, contained, and good character. And that's the essential point here, because to me, the largest lesson here on an individual basis for President-elect Obama is that when you are in touch with your primary energy, and when you act upon that energy within the context of your life with good character, with balance, with the refusal to make the short-term decisions, the results are always positive. The universe indeed brings you the best possible results for your life and for the life of those that you care about. Conversely, John McCain, as an Elgoon and as a true American hero, allowed himself, in my opinion, to do things without the same integrity, things which allowed him to react and to attack, which were not inherently his style. But during this last opportunity for his becoming the President of the United States, an office he had desired for some years, he gave in to those people around him. He gave in to the short term. And the universe rewarded that behavior with defeat. That's the big lesson. The big lesson is that in order to do that which is meaningful, worthwhile, important to our lives, important to our destiny, important to the people we love, the community we're part of, and the planet that we live upon, it requires the Ifa worldview of long-term planning and the refusal to give in to short-term gratification and short-term results. We'll now embark upon, and I will divine, I will cast Ifa for various points in the formation of this administration and the programs of the administration and how they will affect particularly Iyanifa followers, but the country and the world as a whole in the upcoming weeks and months. And we shall see if hopefully this steadfast adherence of Obama to inclusion, to the larger picture, to the longer-term goals, could be maintained in our government. And one final point, by the way, interesting perhaps only to me, but quite interesting, and that is that last evening at 11 o'clock, when it was certain that Barack Obama would be the 44th President of the United States, I turned to my wife and I said, you know, it was back in the, I would guess, early 70s. And I was a young television producer. And on the 44th floor of the Board of Trade building in Chicago, where the studios were, in the evening when the announcement came that Dr. Martin Luther King had been assassinated, I remember the personal horror, fear, anger that I felt. But I, at the time, wasn't sure how it could be coped with, what it meant. And I remember looking out the windows, 44 stories on a clear night, and seeing the expressways almost empty of cars, an entire city in shock, and then watched as sporadic fires began to be started and rioting began to begin in various parts of the city. And I wondered if this was not the beginning of an end. It subsided, but it took almost 40 years. And then suddenly, as I turned to my wife, Vassa, and said, you know, having lived from that moment to this moment at 11:01 on November 4th, 2008, and to see a black man become the first black African American president of the United States is indeed having lived through a millennium or a transformational era. And I'm incredibly happy that I have. I think that's one of the things about age and wisdom and experience, is that you begin to see those things in a larger term. And while in many ways the almost 40 years, and certainly if you were an African American or any discriminated minority, the hundreds or thousands of years perhaps that you've had to endure irrational behavior, the refusal to be included, the discrimination, it seems forever. But in the overall march towards sanity, towards a rational existence and life for ourselves and our children and our grandchildren, maybe it isn't nearly as long as it seems. Until next time, love and blessings.